Great. Thanks for joining to talk about the new tools for learning on Edcite Schools. My name is Julia Sweeney, and I work with a lot of our Edcite Schools teams and making sure that they have everything that they need in order to really implement assessments for learning. So, as we all know, the context for this school year is different than any other we've had before. So, we're going to emphasize our discussion around our summer and fall updates, specifically around learning at home, in school, or both, that blended model. So, before we jump into the specific tools, we like to ground ourselves in exactly what it is that Edcite Schools wants to provide teams. And at the end of the day, we want to positively impact learning and students. And so we strive to be an assessments for learning platform. And we tackle that in two distinct ways through aligned assessments and through actionable data. So, we always talk about aligned assessments, actionable data, and especially this year, we're talking about those two things done anywhere. So, thinking about that lens, let's dive into just the new product updates from this summer and coming out this fall. We'll have other webinars in the coming weeks that deep dive into some of these specific features, but today's session is really just a quick overview of the new tools that teams can really leverage. So let's start with aligned assessments. We want to make sure that every team has the question types, the settings, the tools that they need to measure student understanding. And so each product release, we're constantly adding to those three categories. So let's start by looking at some of the new question types that have been added to the platform. So one of the new question types is the record audio question. And so this is exclusively available for Edcite Schools teams, and it gives students the ability to actually record themselves speaking an answer. The way that this question type has been designed is meant to really mirror that English language learner assessment. So whether you're taking the OELPA or the LPAC or a different state assessment for English language learners, we want to make sure that they have the aligned question types to really get familiar with that technology. So this question type, again, you can build it really similar to an essay question type in that you're really just putting in any stimulus information, any pictures, any audio, and then students, when they see the question, they can click on the microphone to record themselves, stop it when they're done, and play it back before they submit it. Another cool feature coming with these record audio features is an autoplay option. So that should be released in the next few weeks. So when students get to, let's say, question 3, if it has audio, an audio file that students are supposed to listen to, when the question loads, it will automatically start playing the audio files. So, if let's say you aren't just using this for alignment to language learner assessments, but you're also using this for our early elementary students, and you want to have the auto playing of audio files when they open a question. So maybe you put an audio file in here, you put in a picture. When students then open the question, it's going to automatically play whatever audio clip you have added in there. So that autoplay feature is coming in the next couple weeks, but the record audio option is something that your teams can start leveraging. Another question type that has been added to the platform is a new number line drag and drop. And so this one allows you to set the parameters of your number line, and then identify what you want to be droppable onto different parts of the number line. So I just think, this is a question type that is on some of the state assessments. And so we want to make sure that it's easy for teachers to build. We've had, some options for teachers to put in a picture of a number line and then put drag and drop boxes above it. But we got feedback that that wasn't always the easiest. And so this question type is really meant to make it a lot easier so you can set the parameters of your number line and easily add what you want to be draggable and where it should be dropped. So this number line drag and drop question is also a new question from the summer. Now, this feature I think is really cool. So this gets to that idea of, aligned assessments anywhere. So if we want students to show us their understanding, I teach a lesson and I want to make sure my students got the objective. When I give them a question on Edcite, watching them answer it or seeing how they answer the question is sometimes equally as important as whether they got the right answer. So especially important if you are having students at home or a blended model, or you just want a nice digital way at school to capture student work. Every single question on Edcite, and it's not a setting you have to turn on. By default, this has been turned on for all questions. When students go to take an assessment, they are going to see a paperclip option in the top left corner. And when they click on that, they can hold up their work up to the camera on their computer to snap a picture of that and attach it as work for that question. If, let's say, you are using a computer that doesn't have a camera on it, there is an option to, instead of using the webcam, to upload a file. So you'll notice when they click this paperclip, there's take picture or upload file. So if I wanted to take a picture on my phone and then email it to my computer, I could then attach a picture from a different device. So I think that this is like a game changer question feature, the ability to show student work. A lot of teams have been talking about using this for math specifically, but I've also had some ELA teachers say that, it's important that students plan their writing before typing an essay, or it's important that they write a written draft before typing it on the computer. So you could have students, draw out their graphic organizer or their outline and attach a picture to that before typing in their full answer. There's plenty of ways that teams could use this question type or this question feature, which is why it's not exclusively on math questions or exclusively on essay questions. It is on any question interface that a student is looking at. Now, a lot of times the next question for this feature is, well, what does it look like? How do I see that once students attach it? So now on this slide, we're going to look at the grading page. So when I'm grading by student or grading by question, near the buttons where I usually see my rubric option or my add remarks, I'll see the same paperclip that students see where I can click to open up what their student work looked like. So if I'm doing some item analysis and I notice that one of my students is consistently struggling with a certain skill, I might decide, okay, I want to go look at this student's work and understand what their thought process is. Another quick note about understanding students' thought processes is we're talking about showing work in terms of written work. But if we go back to that record audio question, there's also the option to add, a part B where students explain how they solved a math problem. So just, you can look at ways to use these new question types and features to truly assess what students are meant to be learning on that day. So we want to make sure that the tools that you're using align with the skills and the objectives you have for class. In addition to question types and showing student work, we are in the next couple weeks, so I've got asterisks for things that are coming in the next couple weeks. We've also added the ability for sectioned assessments. So I've got calculators here specifically. If, let's say, I need to have an assessment that has a calculator section and a non-calculator section, I can go ahead and in my assignment settings, set specific settings for specific sections of the assessment. So that is going to be released again in the next couple weeks. And so in there, you'll be able to say, for questions 1 through 4, I want the calculator to be turned on. I want the, graphing calculator turned on. And for questions 5 through 10, I don't want the graphing calculator turned on. And what that's going to do is it will require students to submit questions 1 through 4. They'll submit that section before moving on to the non-calculator section. So they won't be able to move back into a previous section after they have, navigated through it and submitted it. So that is, in terms of aligning the tools to the assessment that you're building. So sometimes I don't want students to have a calculator. And so that was something that we heard from teams from an alignment perspective. We really need to be able to turn on and turn off that calculator function or some of the additional settings like periodic tables or just different reference sheets. So being able to build those into different sections within an assessment is an exciting update for that alignment. Another thing that is coming in the next couple weeks, part of our August, end of August, mid-August release, is aligning text to speech to better fit the range of assessments for state tests. So the importance of having your Edcite interface mirror that end of year state test experience is so important for preparing students to really show what they know, to make sure that they aren't getting bogged down in, oh, well, how do I use the buttons? How do I use the interface? So it's really important to us at Edcite that the interface and the tools align with that end of year experience. So one of the things that our team is releasing is text to speech that mirrors your specific state test. If you've been in Ohio, you have always had a text to speech that looks like your state test. But if, let's say, you are in Missouri or you're in Massachusetts, you're now going to see an updated version of text to speech within your state test viewer on Edcite to make sure it really mirrors what students need to know how to do. Now, this is a feature that is something we released at the end of the spring, but I wanted to give it another shout out because I think it's really important when thinking about aligned assessments anywhere. So if, let's say, I am giving an assessment in a hybrid scenario, and tomorrow's webinar is going to talk more about how to give common assessments across multiple learning environments. But let's just real quick talk about timers. If I have 15 students taking the assessment at home, I have 15 students taking it at school. If I want everyone to have the same amount of time to take that assessment, I can put a timer on there and say, okay, the class period is 45 minutes. I can physically see that students are submitting, and I can make sure the students that are in my classroom submit at the end of 45 minutes when they transition to their next class. But the timer is going to let you set that expectation and enforce it for the students at home. So the timer, that's something that you can set up within your assignment settings and is really helpful for just being consistent across learning environments. So those are the big ticket items for alignment, I would say. And then the next section we'll dive into is talking about that actionable data. So we, at the end of the day, we want assessments to be providing you with information that's going to prompt an action. So when we think about actionable data and updates from this summer and for the fall, one of the biggest requests we heard from teams was, I need data in real time for formative assessments. So, part of the challenge, if I have students at home or if I have students spread out in different classrooms and I want to be able to respond to checks for understanding throughout the class period, it's important to be getting real actionable data, but in a format that I can respond in that context. So, one of the tools for monitoring an assessment and responding to what you're seeing is our RealTime Connect feature. Now, RealTime Connect is a live video and chat functionality that is built into the assessment itself. And RealTime Connect is something that we will be doing an entire webinar about and how you can use it for formative and summative and if you're doing it for a more instructional use case. So there's a lot we could say around RealTime Connect, but when we're thinking about actionable data and being able to respond to students' needs and what they're showing us about their understanding of content, we can talk about, how Edcite's features can really prompt that action and facilitate it. So you turn on RealTime Connect within the assignment settings. And once that is turned on, you'll have the option to connect with students. And when you click on that connect button, you are able to see your students via computer video to see what they're doing while they take the assessment. So in this picture, I've got the teacher. I'm the teacher down here in the bottom corner, and I've got all of my students up here. Well, one of the important data points while students are working on an assessment is making sure that they're staying focused and helping to redirect and bring them back in if they start to get distracted, because we know it can be difficult at a distance. So one of the nice features in here is students are either outlined in green or in red. So if they are outlined in red, it indicates that the student has navigated to a different tab or a different application. So if I notice that one of my students is no longer on the Edcite assessment, I might send them specifically a little note, say, hey, make sure we're focusing, or hey, what's going on? I just need 20 more minutes of focus and then we're going to take a little break, or however you need to redirect or reframe for students. You've also got the option to call students directly to initiate a one-on-one conversation. So I think in terms of actionable data, just making sure kids are still with you when they're at a distance is really helpful. Another way that RealTime Connect can be used for that responding in a formative setting is if students are struggling with an assignment, they can flag the teacher. So just to kind of give another quick overview of what the RealTime Connect does. On the last page, we saw that the teacher can see all of the students. But from the student side, they can only see the teacher and it appears above the questions. So it's all within one single interface where the student can ask questions directly to the teacher privately. They can flag the teacher, and the teacher is able to see in real time whether they're getting those questions right or wrong. And so if I noticed that Rocky here flagged me, or if I noticed that Rocky missed the first 5 questions, I could actually start a private discussion with Rocky. So I could click that call button underneath his picture to prompt a direct discussion. And when I do that, it's going to automatically mute and pause me with the rest of my students. So if you think about, when we are in school with our kids, oftentimes if, lessons done, I'm giving a formative assessment to check for understanding on that objective. I might frame the assessment or the independent practice. I'm talking to the whole class. I'm, up at the front of the room. And then once students get started, I'm wandering up and down the rows, kind of touching base with different kids as they raise hands. But let's say that, I notice Rocky is struggling or Rocky raises his hand. Oftentimes in class, I would kneel down next to the student and have a private discussion. The rest of the class wasn't meant to hear that. And so we're trying to facilitate that same easy, I'm with the whole class and now I'm with one student. So being able to kind of pop in and out of that whole class view is really important for being responsive to the data during a formative assessment. One of the nice things with Edcite Schools is that you will also be able to pull student groups. So if I wanted to pull, 3 or 4 students, and you will also be able to have a co-teacher or a sped teacher or an administrator pop into the class as well to pull kids. So that is that RealTime Connect feature. Again, we want to make sure that there are tools to facilitate their response in real time as teachers are getting that real-time data. We're again going to have a total webinar about RealTime Connect, so we won't go too deep into this, but I think this is probably my favorite new feature that has been released. Okay, another option when thinking about, just data and being able to be responsive and support students. A new option is the student focus tracker. So if you, in your assignment settings, turn on the student focus tracker, students will see a notification when they open their assessment that says, please stay on the assignment until you submit. Your teacher is notified each time you move away. So everyone who has Edcite Schools has the option of using a lockdown browser. And so if you have a lockdown browser, that prevents students from opening another tab or opening the calculator on the computer or opening other applications. Sometimes if I have students using personal devices at home, or for some reason we're not using our school device that has the secure browser turned on, in those cases, sometimes it's easier to just let students, have the option to open new tabs so it's not locked down, but you're encouraging students to stay on the assignment. And you can see on the back end every time they've navigated away. And so when thinking about how to be responsive to students, we just want to make sure that teachers have better insight into when students are actually on their assignments. I know, there have been a ton of schools talking about, how do we actually document or measure when students are actively working on their assignments versus, doing something else. And so this is just giving teachers more insight so you can see with the student focus tracking details after they submit. You can see what time the assignment was opened, and you can see timestamps for any time that the student left the assessment. And so this is not going to tell you where the students went. We don't know what tab they opened, what application they opened, but this report will at least tell you that they left question 2 at 2:12 for 35 minutes or whatever it was. The one note on here is that if you are embedding, let's say, a Google Doc or Google Slides or a YouTube video or other links for students to go to other platforms within Edcite, uh, that one definitely is going to take them to those other pages and those other platforms. So just you can expect students to leave question 3 if you have a link to like thehistorychannel.com for students to go watch something. But I think that this is good insight, and then it's just going to better prepare teachers to respond to what they're noticing in terms of student focus and if they need to make adjustments to try to better engage students and keep them with us. There are also going to be some additional reports coming out. These reports are going to be released probably in that October range, so these will be later fall. And these ones are going to be really focused on adding multi-assignment reports to some of those single assignment reports that Edcite Schools teams have probably gotten used to seeing. So the dynamic report, you can see overall performance and you can see the counts of students and percentage of students in each proficiency range for that assessment. Well, what's nice is that once we get these additional reports released, you'll be able to see those in a single view over multiple assignments. So I think that's pretty exciting. So stay tuned on that one. And then the last couple things I'll highlight from the summer and fall updates are, organization and logistics. We want to make sure that the platform is easy to use and to scale. So this one I think is very exciting is the ability when you're saving questions, you can save them directly to the folder that you want them in. The same thing goes with assignments. So for a long time, and for people that have used Edcite for a while, you probably have always gotten used to, okay, I save my question, and then I go to my questions, and then I can move it into the folder. Well, with this new release, I can skip that step of having to go to my questions and move it into the folder. I can just save it directly into that folder. So where you see that little drop down next to the save button, you're going to be able to save it to either your personal folders if you have a folder structure or to the school's folders. And if anyone on the call needs to get their Edcite Schools folders set up for their team, please send an email to schoolshelp@edcite.com and we can help you get that set up. And then the last thing we'll say is really around accommodations. So this was a feature that came out second half of the school year last year, but I wanted to highlight it again before the start of this year, is that you can actually set student group settings for students to follow them across all of their assignments and assessments on Edcite. So if I know that 3 students need to have magnified text on everything they take on Edcite, whether they are at home, in school, or both, I can actually set from the main admin account a magnified text group, add those 3 students, and then turn on a group setting for magnified text. So it's going to override every teacher setting on assessments for them, and it's always going to make sure that those 3 kids always have magnified text. So we've got another session specifically focused on accommodations and the different settings you can use and really how to make sure that you're meeting the needs of all learners. But this was just a quick overview to highlight that you can set those accommodations at the admin level. So that is our quick overview of the big ticket items from the summer and fall updates. And I appreciate all of you guys joining. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at schoolshelp@edcite.com. All right. Thanks so much, everybody.